Hey everyone, Vincenzo Calla here. Welcome to episode 20 of Let's Discuss Politics. Today, I'm glad to be joined by the MPP for Kingston and the Islands, Ted Hsu. Ted was recently elected to become the MPP for Kingston and the Islands in the June 2022 election. After high school, Ted followed his passion for science and became a physicist. After 9 years working in science, he took his math, computing, and problem-solving skills into the world of finance, where he was eventually promoted to manage a team and business line. In 2011, Ted was elected as the MP for Kingston and the Islands, one of the very few scientists in that parliament. He served as an MP until 2015, when he did not run again. In 2019, Ted joined the Kingston Mayor's Task Force on Housing as a co-chair. Ted currently serves as the Ontario Liberal critic for energy, mines, natural resources, and forestry, as well as citizenship and multiculturalism. Thank you, Ted, for joining me today.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for inviting me to come.
It's great to have you here, and we're going to start off with our first segment, which is called Ted's Story, where we talk about your political history.
Uh-huh.
So the first question is, when did you first get involved in politics?
Well, I first got involved in politics actually rather late in life, in my 40s, after my first kid was born. It was 2006. It was the federal Liberal leadership race after the loss to the Conservatives to Stephen Harper that year. There were a lot of candidates. It was a wide open race, and there were a lot of spots for people interested in joining in. So it was a great time to get involved, and that's when I first got involved.
Well, definitely, and I would say that there's always great ways to get involved in politics, but there's some certain points that open you up to getting involved in politics. Those points are leadership races, general elections, nomination races, and it's important that when those opportunities come up, if you're interested, you go into them and you get involved, whether that is running yourself or just wanting to sit on the sidelines and volunteer, that sort of thing. So very
Absolutely.
important there.
It's I always when I talk to audiences about getting involved in politics, I always mention exactly that at those points in time, there are lots of spots open for people who just want to jump in.
Definitely. And we're going to go into the next question, which is why did you decide to run for the position you hold? So why did you decide to run for MPP in the recent election?
Well, I never really left politics after I didn't run again in 2015 for in the federal election of 2015. I didn't run again, but I was running campaigns, canvassing, participating in a number of campaigns. But what had happened between 2015 and 2022 is that my kids have grown up. My oldest daughter's finished high school and left home. And so it was really a good time for my family was ready. And the second thing I would say is that we are in a time, I think, that is going to be very hard to be a government. We're just besieged with a housing crisis, cost of living, climate crisis, healthcare crisis now that is continuing, even though the pandemic is kind of abating, but the healthcare system is in a crisis. So there's all these things that need to be worked on, and I want to be part of the elected officials to make sure that our government does the best job possible, to hold them to account. Now, unfortunately, my party didn't win the election, but it just means that my job in opposition is to try to make this government, this progressive conservative government in Ontario, better than it would otherwise be.
Well, I mean, those are all really valid issues that everyday Ontarians are facing right now. You know, there's a housing crisis, people can't afford homes, people can't go to the emergency room because there's a lot of emergency rooms that are closed or delays that are long. And those are all big things that are starting to come to the forefront as this summer session of the legislature comes back. And I mean, you're my fifth Liberal MPP on the show. I've had um John Fraser, Lucille Collard, Stephen Blais, and Adil Shamji, and then yourself now. And these are all the conversations that your party is bringing forward, and lots that came in the last election, and lots that is being talked about now for sure, and on all sides of the house too. So we're going to go on to the next segment, which is called Serving as an Elected Official, where we'll talk about Ted's community and hopes as a newly elected official. So the first question is, what is your favorite part about the community you're representing? So what's your favorite part about Kingston and the Islands?
Well, I think it's that there's a little bit of everything in Kingston. Kingston is urban, and it's also rural. We have a lot of retirees here, but we have young students. We've got a pretty strong artistic community, a pretty strong innovative community, startups. I think it's the #1 small city for startups in Canada. But we also have a lot of heritage, and we have a tourism industry that's based on that heritage. The old part of Kingston, it's a place where the Parliament of Upper Canada has met before. So it is a place that's not too big, it's not too small, and it's got a lot of different things in it.
Definitely. And I was just down there in Kingston on Sunday at the time of this filming, and I just spent the day there doing a bunch of things with my family. I mean, there was so much to do, you know. You're right, you know, the heritage parts of it. I even went to this little alley called Martello Alley.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Martello Alley
great
was
story.
great. It was great, and I encourage anybody who goes to Kingston to go there. It was really cool. It was a little cool art area, and lots of small businesses to support there, and a great community there, and a lot of great people too. And I'm sure that helps your job a lot easier, having to serve all those great being able to serve all the great people there.
Mhm.
So we're gonna go on to the next question, which is and this is a big one because you were just recently elected, and there's 4 years ahead of you, maybe even 8 years, depending on if you run and win again. But it's a good point to start thinking about this, and for the audience to hear. So my question is, what do you hope to achieve as an elected official in Ontario's government, in Ontario's parliament?
Well, so let me answer this question at a very sort of grand level, um, because I don't know how long I'll be able to serve. The voters can vote you out the
Yeah.
next time. I mean, I hope to win a lot of elections from here on. But uh, I would like to help Ontario and the people of Ontario realize their potential. So Ontario is if you considered it a country by itself, it would be something like the 25th or 26th largest in terms of the size of its economy, the landmass. So we have a world-class city. We have a lot of natural resources. We've got one of the best educated populations in the world. And it's a place where I think, given all of the really difficult challenges and crises that we have, other places in the world are also having similar problems. And I think that my job, what I'd like to do, is help Ontario overcome these challenges and just be the best they can be. Allow the people, the average person in Ontario, to live a fulfilling life, even though we have these challenges, because we have all these resources. And if we apply these resources, our education, our connection to the world, world-class city in Toronto, natural resources, we should be able to succeed, and the people in Ontario should be able to lead full lives because we'll be able to overcome these problems.
Well, and I'm sure yourself as a scientist by profession, there's especially there's been a lot of talk. I mean, obviously it should be more than talk, but a lot of talk about the climate crisis and what Ontario can do. Ontario's part in that, in solving the climate crisis. And as a worldly sort of province that could very well, I mean, looking at the spectrum of it, like you said, looking at comparing it to other countries, and comparing Ontario as sort of like its own area. There's a lot that can be done. I'm sure that you're going to be working on, especially as the critic for natural resources, and working with your cross-party colleagues to sort of solve that climate crisis. I know that's something really big right now, and it's something
Yeah,
that everybody's thinking of.
I've already had a chance to speak in the Ontario legislature about energy in my speech in response to the throne speech that was just given, and the energy minister was there, and he asked me some questions, so we exchanged. We had a heated exchange, but civil exchange in the legislature. So yeah, it starts right there.
Definitely. And we're going to go on to the last segment, which is called Politics Are All Around Us, where we talk about the world of politics around us. The first question I want to ask is, who is or who was another politician that inspires you?
Well,
If you have a
it's
few, you
it's
can name them
it's
too.
hard to, it's hard to single out one or two, but let me give you a maybe a slightly unexpected answer, which is, there is a group of politicians that I came to know very well, kind of by accident, and it's the other federal liberal MPs that I served with from 2011 to 2015. Because in 2011, the federal Liberal Party suffered this really bad defeat, and there were only 34 Liberals across Canada that survived. And I came to know these MPs who survived that election, who managed to get elected, and they were all inspirational because they all had some special qualities that enabled them to survive. And I came to understand what these qualities were, whether it was a really intense connection with their constituents, or really good understanding of politics or issues of importance, or maybe it was the ability to solve problems for constituents, ability to communicate, all sorts of different things. And for each of these 30 or so MPs that survived that electoral disaster, I could see something that I could learn from and be inspired by. So I see the same things in this small caucus of 8 Liberal MPPs that I'm in right now. It was a difficult election in which to be a successful Liberal candidate, and each of these candidates has something special about them that I can learn from and be inspired by. So people, I guess in general, people who survive very difficult elections are inspiring.
Well, for sure. And I mean, in Canadian politics and Ontario politics, there's always ups and downs of parties. There's parties that may have been governing for 100 of the 150 years or whatever, a big number of the years of our country, of our province, that there's ups and downs, and being able to sort of see what made them go up and see what goes down, and sort of rebuilding. And it's sort of like rebuilding a hockey team, right? I mean, looking at what you have, sort of focusing on what you have, and expanding that from there on, and working with people to do that.
For sure, yes.
So we're going to go into the last question, which is, what do you think is an issue that needs to be focused on more?
Well, I think what I would say is there should be more of a sense of urgency, that there are multiple crises happening, and we need to actually get some results. And we have to treat things like it's a crisis. So there's a crisis in housing and the cost of living and our healthcare system, and there's a climate crisis. And all of these things, I think we have to treat like there is a crisis. So we're going to have to take some bigger steps, take some more risky steps, because something has to be done and we have to get results. It can't be, I would like to focus on what is the next thing we can do for each of these crises, and not so much posturing about, oh, we're the good guys and the other parties are the bad guys. But I think we really need to focus on what is the next step for each of these multiple crises, because I think that people want to see not just ideology or posturing or stand up and give a great speech, but they want to see, okay, give me a result in the next year, or however long it takes.
Definitely, and that is a great way to end our interview on, just thinking about what can individuals as well as teams in Parliament and that have responsibilities do to sort of help Ontarians, help Canadians, help residents of your riding even, doing that and looking at what impacts them, and bringing a sense of urgency to that. So a great way to end our interview. So that is all for today. Thank you, Ted, so much for joining me. It was great having you today. And if you liked today's interview, make sure to go check out my other interview with Ted on Instagram for Top 10. If you're watching this at the time of the premiere, it's going to be coming out on Friday. So to stay updated, make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at VC Productions 25. Check out my website, VincenzoCalla.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, and choose to get notifications here on YouTube. Let's discuss politics as a VCalla production. So until the next video, I'm Vincenzo Calla, signing out.